Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're beginning this morning with President Trump's newly implemented tariffs, which are sparking condemnation from countries around the world and are stoking a trade war that threatens to upend the global economy. On Wednesday, the president unveiled what he called reciprocal tariffs of at least 10% on every U.S. trading partner. That number rising sharply for countries like China, Vietnam, and Cambodia. The tariffs are in addition to a 25% levy on all auto imports, which took effect overnight.
The global outrage has been swift. The European Union is calling the tariffs a major blow to the world economy. China says it's preparing countermeasures. And this morning, global financial markets are nosediving. Asian stocks closed sharply in the red, while European markets are currently trading lower. Wall Street is set to follow suit. U.S. futures show that all three major indexes are expected to drop when markets open. Speaking yesterday, the president made his case, arguing the tariffs will boost U.S. manufacturing. He says they are retaliation for what are unfair trading practices.
Tariffs give our country protection against those that would do us economic harm. And many people were looking to do us economic harm. But even more importantly, they will give us growth. These tariffs are going to give us growth like you haven't seen before. And it'll be something very special.
We've got a team standing by to talk about all of this and more. We're going to start things off with NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake and our business and data correspondent Brian Chung. Good morning to both of you. Garrett, let's start with you. Walk us through the key takeaways from that event yesterday at the Rose Garden. How did the president frame these tariffs for the public?
Well, Joe, the president was surrounded by some of the blue-collar kind of industry workers that he thinks could benefit from this program. He cast this as an issue of fairness in the global economy. It's part of what he believes is a necessary effort to try to bring back manufacturing that in many cases hasn't existed in the United States for decades. He believes, and has believed for the entirety of his public career, that the United States has been taken advantage of by trade partners around the world. And through this broad and in many cases staggeringly deep application of tariffs on those countries, he can convince businesses to move back to the United States and create a renaissance in industries that haven't often existed in the U.S. in recent memory. Here's some of how he cast this announcement yesterday. Listen to this.
This is not full reciprocal. This is kind reciprocal. But what we do is we cut it in half. We charge them. My answer is very simple. If they complain, if you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your plant, your product in America.
Joe, these tariffs are not, in fact, reciprocal by any standard definition of the word. They're based on a formula that the White House used, which looks at trade deficits we have with these countries and then essentially halves it. So the numbers that the presented, if you look at that chart, for example, on the left, the blue numbers aren't accurate representations of what other countries are placing on United States goods. He says that if you make your product in the U.S., it would face no tariff. That is true, but remember that in this case, the baseline for any imported good from any country based on this order is 10%. So no matter how low the trade barriers might be in another foreign country for the goods that they send to the U.S., those goods will too face a 10% tax, which is paid by you and me when we purchase those items.
Ryan, let's bring you in here. What do we know so far about other countries now retaliating in response? What's the impact going to look like?
Well, I think the biggest one is China, because not only were the reciprocal tariffs, as the Trump administration is branding it, on the country, but that stacks on top of the 20% tariffs that were already in effect prior to yesterday afternoon's announcement. So that would take the effective tariff rate on China to 54%. That will be really impactful for trade between the U.S. and China, which, by the way, are the two largest economies in the world. China hitting back very forcefully overnight, saying that, quote, the U.S. claims that it has suffered losses in international trade and uses the so-called, and they put this in air quotes, reciprocity as the reason to raise tariffs on all trade partners. This approach disregards the balance of interests achieved through years of multilateral trade negotiations. So, translation, the actions that were taken by the Trump administration against China have undone the working relationship between the two world's largest economies. And I think that that cannot be understated enough when you talk about the consumer impact, because so many of the clothes, electronics, laptops, smartphones, game consoles that we buy come from China. And yes, even if it was indeed the case that, okay, American companies can just start to make those themselves, that would take years to do. Right. I want to emphasize that. Reshoring the supply chain to the United States would take years to do. in the meantime, that 54% tariff could be a tax that gets passed on to the consumer.
It is not a light switch, so we are bracing for what could be a really rough day on Wall Street. What are investors thinking right now? Are they concerned this could be just more than a short-term dip? This could be something bigger?
Yeah, well, I mean, for what it's worth, it was interesting that the Trump administration chose to make this announcement at 4 p.m. Eastern yesterday, which is when the markets closed. So we didn't have any sort of U.S. reaction. We won't until we get to 9:30. But there are market futures where you can take a look at what the implied open would be, and it does not look good at all. The implied open on the S&P 500 as well as the Dow Jones Industrial Average now down over 3%. And after we saw the international markets in Japan, for example, markets sold off by more than 2%. European markets also having a rocky day as well. It could be a bad day on Wall Street today as well.
Garrett, just real quick, we want to switch gears. We have to ask you another big story this morning. Elon Musk's time as a special government employee running Doge could be coming to an end. What do we know at this point?
Well, look, on paper, it's certainly coming to an end. The statute that creates special government employees said you're really only supposed to do that job for about 130 days. We would be potentially halfway through that time right now. But the president, we know, had discussed this privately at a cabinet meeting about a week ago and has discussed it publicly since, the idea that Musk's work may be soon wrapping up with Doge. I think what soon means is an open question. That special government employee clock would run out likely at the end of May. But Musk is probably the most polarizing figure in Washington, not named Donald Trump. And so I think there are a lot of folks in both parties who'd like to see either his work completed in Washington or his work for his companies resume more of his attention. We'll be watching that story closely, given Musk's outsized role across so many different areas of the government right now.
All right. Garrett and Brian, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Let's now bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Mel, good morning. So Senate Republicans, they delivered this rare rebuke to President Trump. Several GOP members joining Democrats. This was in passing a resolution to block Mr. Trump's tariffs on Canadian products. Walk us through this vote and where it goes from here.
Yeah, this was the most public break from Donald Trump that we have really seen from Republicans since the start of the new administration. 4 Republicans crossed party lines to join Democrats in backing this resolution, which would cancel the emergency declaration that Trump is using to institute these 25% tariffs on Canada. And among those 4 Republicans was Mitch McConnell, the former GOP leader, as well as Rand Paul and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, 2 frequent critics of Donald Trump who have been willing to sort of buck him in critical moments throughout this year. But there is deep concern in the Republican Party right now about the economic pain that everyday Americans are going to be feeling in the months and potentially years ahead. And of course, there's also concern about the political pain, with many lawmakers thinking about their own elections, given that Trump himself does not have to be on the ballot once again. Just take a listen to what some Republicans had to say yesterday.
Tariffs are a terrible mistake. They don't work. They will lead to higher prices. They are a tax, and they have historically been bad for our economy.
There's a way to stop this trade war. It's just to remove the tariffs on both sides. Remember what Mama Gump said? Stupid is as stupid does. Let's don't be stupid.
Now, what's notable about that last senator there is that actually he was not one of the Republicans who supported this resolution to object to the tariffs. So even though there is a lot of uneasiness in the Republican Party about the idea of a prolonged trade war, most of them sticking by Donald Trump. And to that end, this resolution expected to go nowhere in the GOP-controlled House.
So, Mel, lawmakers keeping busy on the Hill beyond tariffs. Senate Republicans released a budget plan yesterday that would pave the way for new tax cuts, in addition to making President Trump's 2017 cuts permanent. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so this is just a blueprint, but it is the critical first step needed in order to be able to eventually pass Donald Trump's sweeping domestic policy agenda by only using Republican votes in the Senate. That is something called reconciliation. So that's why they're going through this very tricky budget process that you're seeing play out. But what's notable here is that the House and Senate for the past few months have been on very different pages. But following a key meeting with Donald Trump yesterday, they emerged and had a compromised budget blueprint they released yesterday. That is going to be on the Senate floor tomorrow night. Potentially it could be an all-night situation. And then the House is going to try to vote on it next week. But again, this does not actually actually spell out any policy. It just outlines the goals for spending cuts and for spending when it comes to taxes. So they are saving many of these much more tricky fights, like how to actually cut that spending for later in the process.
Mel, a key vote could take place today for President Trump's nominee for administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. This is Dr. Oz, former talk show host. What could we expect there? Are there any hurdles standing in his way?
He is expected to be easily confirmed later this afternoon. He advanced out of the committee last week along party lines, and he most recently picked up a support from Republican Josh Hawley, who initially had some concerns about his past stance on abortion and his past stance on transgender care for students. But Hawley says he has received some new assurances from Dr. Oz, essentially all but guaranteeing that he will be on a glide path to confirmation later today, guys.
All right, Mel, thank you so much.
Boeing CEO was grilled by lawmakers on Capitol Hill yesterday. He was in the hot seat testifying about how the company is addressing ongoing concerns over the safety of its planes. It was Kelly Ortberg's first hearing since he became CEO last year. He acknowledged the company made serious missteps in recent years when it came to manufacturing. He also defended Boeing, saying it has made sweeping changes to the people, the processes, and the overall structure of the company.
Mr. Ortberg, what can you say here to the millions who will board a Boeing plane this year, to the millions who will put their children on the plane? And I suspect every member of this panel fly Boeing planes every single week. What can you say to the flying public as to why they should trust that a Boeing plane is safe?
Senator, the Boeing aircraft, 737 MAX airplanes take off and land every 2 seconds of the day, safely take off and land every 2 seconds of the day. I'm not denying the horrible incidents that you've outlined. We need to take immediate action, and we are taking action to make sure those accidents never happen again.
This hearing comes after the FAA put a monthly cap on Boeing's production of its popular 737 MAX planes following last year's terrifying incident. You might recall a door plug blew out in the middle of an Alaskan Airlines flight. There were amazingly no serious injuries, but the agency says it does plan to keep that limit in place for now.
Well, a powerful line of deadly storms is making its way across the country this morning, and 30 million people from northeast Texas to Pennsylvania could feel the effects. This storm system has spawned massive tornadoes like this one that touched down near Lake City, Arkansas. That's in the northeast part of the state.
To the north in Indiana, emergency crews had to rescue a woman from this warehouse after it was reportedly hit by a tornado. And in Missouri, another line of tornadoes flipped vehicles, destroyed homes, knocked out power to tens of thousands of people.
And in Kentucky, a church was severely damaged by the powerful storms. That is where NBC News correspondent George Solis is this morning, joining us live with more. George, good morning. What is it like there this morning? What can you tell us you're seeing?
Hey, good morning, Savannah and Joe. There is a little bit of rain here, and that is obviously a big concern as part of this 1-2 punch. You had the threat of tornadoes last night. Now you have more rain, which could increase that threat for flash flooding. Here in West Paducah, outside of the Christ Community Church, I want to show you what appears to be the work of an apparent tornado. Take a look. You can see right here some of the cinder blocks that were tossed around, and take a look at that. That's a piece of plywood that went right through the roof, but that doesn't really give you the full scope of the damage here. I want you to see this right here. Take a look at the roof here. You can see it is split in two here, almost a perfect line that is cut through, and you can see some of the truss there of the roof. The good news here, there were no church services. They actually made sure that there were no services here yesterday, so no one was here. But again, the damage is apparent. The church posting on Facebook a message of gratitude and obviously somber tone because of what happened here. But they, of course, are looking forward to rebuilding and, of course, outreach from the community, given the magnitude of this. And elsewhere in Kentucky, unfortunately, we do know of an incident outside of a church where it appears at least 4 people may have been injured. This, of course, brings the total, when you talk about this whole region between several states, about 10 injured and at least 3 confirmed fatalities, 2 in Tennessee and 1 in Missouri. That number, of course, could shift as we learn more, especially as the sun starts to come up here, about the devastation of this once-in-a-generation type storm that, again, not only brought some tornadoes to the region, But now here, particularly in Kentucky, we're concerned about the days of rain and how that could impact the rivers here. We were actually in downtown Paducah yesterday where we saw some of that concern of the river there. Luckily, there is a flood wall there, guys, so that should keep the town safe. But nevertheless, we are far from done with this weather event.
George, just big picture. I mean, we've got 30 million people under the threat of severe weather now this morning. What are some of the other parts of the country where folks are concerned right now?
Right, so you still have a lot of concern here in the South and in the Midwest. I mean, we saw some of that rain in Chicago, which led to some flooding. You had some ice storms up in the Midwest as well. But again, when you're talking about what's coming in the next several days, we're really looking at states down here in the South where that rain is just going to keep falling through the weekend. And of course, again, that big concern about that flash flooding. Fortunately, it seems, at least for now, the threat of tornadoes is moving out of here. But nevertheless, obviously, as we look at some of the damage here, there's going to be a lot of cleanup ahead, guys.
All right, George Solis, stay safe. Thank you very much.
For a closer look at the severe weather, let's check in now with your Morning News Now forecast.
Angie Lastman's here in studio covering it all. Hi, Angie. Good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. George is exactly right. We've got multiple more days of kind of threat weather impacts for us all over essentially the same region that's been dealing with this system for the past day or so. So let's give you the lay of the land of what we're starting with this morning. It's been an active morning. This really robust line of thunderstorms continues to work its way to the east. We've seen some improvements when it comes to the watches expiring in some spots. It's a whole lot smaller, that tornado watch, than it was, say, a couple of hours ago. So that doesn't mean that we won't have the threat through the day today. You can still see that there's quite a lot of active kind of thunderstorms right along that leading edge. But we're going to still be looking at all the ingredients there, again, over some of those same spots for us to see this ramp back up, specifically into the afternoon hours and into the evening hours. But for now, no more tornado warnings across this region, although there were a couple that we watched work through that same area earlier this morning. Here's what happens really today and into tonight. We've got this stalled front. This is what's to blame for all of this. And that means that we've got more of these kind of afternoon showers, thunderstorms, potentially strong storms working across this area. But we've also got the heavy rain, and that's going to be quite impactful. When we deal with the severe storm impacts, it's mainly going to be the tornadoes that will be likely once again. A few of those could be strong and again centered over the same area. It does extend from Washington down to Dallas, but notice Little Rock is right in that bullseye of that enhanced risk. And that's where we'll likely see the potential for not just tornadoes, but large tornadoes as well. That includes El Dorado, Texarkana, and Memphis as well. By tomorrow, another day of severe threat, another day of heavy rain, leading to the potential for some flooding. And so this is going to be kind of mainly focused with the best chances from Texas up into Illinois. We'll see more of those severe storms developing. This time, that same bullseye of the enhanced risk is over Little Rock, but it does include Evansville back down to San Antonio for us to see tennis ball size hail, as well as those damaging winds. And of course, those EF2 or higher tornadoes. The risk is a lot smaller than it was yesterday, but still it is not zero. And it's going to be there again over that same region. That last surge of moisture starts to work in by the time we get to Saturday. So again, this is why we're so concerned about the flooding. We're still going to see the risk for severe storms on Saturday, now focused a little farther to the south, but the flooding concern will last through the weekend. We've got 38 million people under these flood alerts right now. Notice where those flash flood warnings are: Nashville, Memphis, Indianapolis, Detroit. The river flooding is going to be a big concern, and this is likely going to be the biggest impact from this. It's hard to say that, guys, because of course when you're talking about EF2 or higher tornadoes, those are life-threatening, but this flash flooding will be historic, potentially once in a generation kind of situation that we'll see unfolding over the same area for multiple days. That's Memphis, Paducah, Evansville, Texarkana. This is through Saturday. Today, though, that flash flooding risk is going to be a high risk across that same area, already receiving anywhere from 4 to 5 inches in some of these spots, and we've got another 7+ inches to go in some locations. Again, it's because we have multiple days of this heavy rain centered across the same region with that stalled out front. That means that totals could reach over a foot, maybe 15 inches or higher. Wow. Big concerns. We know that water kills, of course, and people dealing with this flash flooding across that same area through at least Sunday.
All right.
15 inches.
Yeah, an incredible amount of rain in a short period of time.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
Got it.
Well, on Wednesday, a judge permanently dismissed the federal corruption case brought against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Adams was indicted in September for accepting more than $100,000 worth of free plane tickets and luxury hotel stays from Turkish nationals in exchange for political favors. In February, the Justice Department moved to dismiss the charges without prejudice, which means the case could have been brought again. The department argued the case interfered with the mayor's ability to help carry out the Trump administration's immigration policies. Adams maintained his innocence yesterday, calling the corruption charges baseless. He also confirmed he is still running for re-election.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.